was health-driven.
Yeah, totally.
So were they going to do another full tour, even if Ed, hadn't passed away? I don't know, because I don't think they were going in that direction. I think they were trying to do a few big shows, and that was it.
I'm not so sure, and I still have said, I don't remember Sammy's name coming up with this kitchen sink tour back when they were actually talking about doing a tour. Mike's name was brought up. I'd never heard anything about Gary, but I always was under the impression that was going to be a kind of a reuniting of the original Van Halen, and then Wolf would be part of it, and Mike would be part of it, and it would be some sort of bass sharing situation, or Mike is only going to come out for like 5 songs or something. I mean, that's what was going on. I don't know where this whole thing with Sammy was about.
Well, it came from Sam.
I know.
I remember Sammy talking about it.
I know. Well, Sam was talking about it. I think he had the idea like, hey, I'm back in Eddie's good graces because we reunited on the phone, and yeah, it would have happened. Yeah, it would have happened. But wait a second. Forget about yeah, it would have happened. Back up to when it was really supposed to happen. And he was talking about, saying we're going to stop touring and I'm going to go chill out while Mike does the Van Halen thing. He said that. He didn't say we're going to stop touring so we can go do the Van Halen thing. He said it straight out. It was right on Eddie Trunk's show, I think. I want my man Mike to have closure with his whole band. He deserves that. You remember that whole thing?
Yeah.
There was no talk of Sammy reuniting back then. So I understand that Wolf floated that idea to his dad, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine, and I can see, Ed in the position he was, like, hey, that would be cool, this and that, and I think Irving Azoff got a little excited there, and he started making phone calls before it was, and then Dave started talking to the press. That was kind of weird. I can't believe that Dave did that, because Dave's not like that. He's not a loose-lipped guy, you know what I mean? So that was weird. So anyway, letter number 2 comes from Vegas Paul Davis, Dave. This guy, he loves that name. He won't stop.
That is my favorite new fan mail name.
It's a new, okay, well, let me tell you something.
Yes.
He wrote us a couple letters. He's number 2 and number 3. He's starting off, hi, Dave and Dave. Sorry for the length of this email. Lots of details here. More of an off-air suggestion than a question. I know that I have seen the linked article below at the Van Halen news desk about the Skyscraper album cover shoot. However, it's just some perspective from someone who is an ardent lover of Yosemite. Dave's position on the northwest face of the Half Dome, where he's photographed on the Skyscraper cover at over 4,000 feet above the valley floor, and that's roughly 4 Empire State Buildings stacked on top of each other. I've been on top and peered out over the edge, and it's absolutely terrifying. The story is how they got the shot, and not only one of my favorite Van Halen stories, it's one of my favorite Yosemite stories, and I don't remember hearing anything about David Lee Roth being scared or anything. I did a little research and learned that the rigger who tells the story is legendary Yosemite climber Werner Braun. Here's Braun in the 1970s. Gotta love your lovin' spoonful while you're free climbing, I guess. And there's an interview with Ron Kroc, the other climber, who would also be an awesome interview. Unfortunately, photographer Gary Rowland is one of the most famous mountaineer photographers of the world, was killed in a private plane crash about 20 years ago. On that afternoon in Yosemite, he had 4 icons of their crafts assembled on the Half Dome. And if you were able to get an interview, I'd love to ask them a couple of Yosemite-specific questions about the shoot. Stay safe and hope to see you in 2021, Vegas, Paul Davis. Well, Paul, that would be great. We would take a look into this for sure. I think it's a nice idea. A lot of the work that went into that cover is pretty intense, and I'm not sure so many people appreciate the intensity of it all. I would have loved to have seen sort of a documentary on that. That sounds like it was a lot of work for something that probably could have been done in a studio. If you think about it, it could have been done on a rock climbing wall. But that was a pretty cool shot. I remember really appreciating it from some of the clips from the Just Like Paradise video that they really showed Dave up there. But other than that, I don't think people know much about it. What do you think, Dave?
I remember reading an article on that, and Dave was really nervous because, he's like on the side of a mountain. I think they said later that, it wasn't quite as secure as it should have been.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, so it was a little crazy. But yeah, I would definitely love to talk to those two guys from their point of view. Hey, you're doing this album cover shoot, what was that all about?
I know. It seemed like a lot of effort for a few pictures. That's for sure. Now, letter number 3 is also from Vegas Paul Davis from Sacramento, California. He says, your review of A Little Ain't Enough was a ton of fun, and I love this album. I don't do what ifs, but during your discussion of Skyscraper, you mentioned that the album's poppy nature was kind of out of place with all the hard rock albums that released in 1988. What if A Little Ain't Enough had been the follow-up to Eat 'Em and Smile? Its showtime could be track number 1 on the album. I don't have a podcast or a radio show, but I always imagined that if I did, my lead bumper song would be the dream sequence in the middle of Drop in the Bucket. So glad you mentioned it. Best regards, Vegas Paul Davis. We're going to go right into What If territory. Now it's time for What If with Dave and Dave. Shit, what if? What if? Dave Marconi's favorite segment, What If? What if, motherfucker?
I don't do what ifs.
Well, Paul, nice to have you back again. It's been so long since we heard from you. So I have to tell you 2 things, Paul. I think A Little Ain't Enough was, like Dave said in the last cast, an attempt at a return to form, which I thought was a good way to put it. But here's the deal. A Little Ain't Enough couldn't have really followed Eat 'Em and Smile because the band was totally different. There was no Jason Becker. There was no Steve Hunter. I think Dave should have utilized the firepower he had with Vi and Sheehan and Bissonette. The chemistry on the Eat 'Em and Smile album was huge, and I really wish, instead of taking the left turn he made with Skyscraper, that he kind of leaned into that band a little bit more. I do like Skyscraper for what it is, but I can't help but feel that Dave missed the boat there, and his move cost him to lose Sheehan and then Vi. And what do you think, Dave?
I do think that the album would have done better in 1988, simply because it was 1988 and not 1991. I do think it was closer to a rock album than Skyscraper was. So I do think Dave could have kept that momentum going if MTV was going to show the videos.
Yeah, good point. Big difference.
We had talked about last time.
Big difference.
It almost seemed like MTV had a bug up their butt about releasing any of the videos from that album.
Yeah, somebody was dive bombing on Dave.
Right.
Yeah.
So now, if they were still having trouble getting the videos shown on MTV in 1988, that really wouldn't have helped the album because, you know, that kind of exposure was big at that time. But if they had shown the videos, I think Dave would have at least had a hit in 1988 off that album, like I said, simply because of the time involved.
Totally. That's for sure.
That's all, folks.
Letter number 4 comes from Two Sheds David Roberts. Dave, everybody's got a nickname. This guy's Two Sheds. God, I don't even know what that means, but I don't even want to ask. So
Maybe he just has 2 sheds. That's
maybe.
all.
Well, something tells me it's got to be more than that. There's a story there. So letter number 4 comes from Two Sheds David Roberts. Hearing the description of the original album cover for Little Ain't Enough, I'm surprised the original name of the album wasn't Smell the Glove. So he's obviously making a Spinal Tap reference there. So that's pretty funny. Perhaps you're right, but I still want to see that cover. I have never, ever seen anything, a mock-up, a drawing, a clipping, anything about that cover other than the description of it, and I want to know who did that. I am so ready to find that out. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, me too. That's like one of the lost bits of David Lee Roth trivia.
That's the truth. That's the truth. Letter number 5 comes from Amy Hawkins from Cardiff, United Kingdom. Now listen to this one, guys. Hey, guys. Apologies if this is something you don't do, but I just know that my boyfriend Dan is a big fan of your podcast, and I overhear him listening to you all the time. It's his birthday on the 12th of February, and I'm thinking far ahead, but I'm not sure how often you release episodes or how far in advance you record, but I was wondering if you'd give him a shout-out on the podcast for his birthday. His name is Daniel Sinclair, and we're from Cardiff in Wales in the United Kingdom, and he'll be 26 years old. He's the biggest Van Halen fan I know, and as I said, he really enjoys your podcast and listens all the time, so it'd be really cool if he was listening, then all of a sudden heard his birthday shout-out for himself. It would make his day. He deserves it, man. Throughout the pandemic, he had to shield due to his health conditions, so it's been a really tough year, and I'm looking for ways to make his birthday special and make him smile. And I understand if this is something you can't do, or if you get asked a lot, so if you can't fulfill it, I'll understand. That's cool. I get it. I just wanted to take my chances and ask you. Thanks so much for your time and for reading and considering my email. Take care, Amy Hawkins. Wow, so happy birthday to Daniel Sinclair. You're only 26. My God, my son is 26. And that hurts. So holy shit, if we feel old. Oh, my God.
Happy birthday to you, sir.
Yes.
You have a very cool girlfriend.
Absolutely. I was just going to say that. Congratulations. Sounds like you really scored a cool girlfriend, Amy. Wow. Glad to hear that we have some young people listening to this other than us middle-aged, balding white guys. Listen, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. And to you, I say cheerio. So, happy birthday, Daniel. That's awesome. And letter number 6, Dave. You know we couldn't stay away long enough. It's Shannon the Dude. And this one's even wackier than the last. He says, I thought I'd have some fun with this. And he sent us clips of a parrot singing along to Van Halen songs. Here's a clip. Shannon the Dude. What can I say, Shannon? You are certainly a man with, as Tommy Shaw says from Styx, too much time on your hands.
That is deep down the rabbit hole. I watched one of the videos. It was amusing. That's all I had to really see.
That was enough. One was enough for Dave.
One was enough. Thank you for sharing. I definitely would never have seen that on my own.
That's the truth. Letter number 7 comes from Daz in Australia. His name is Darren Lynch, but he calls himself Daz because everybody in this podcast has to have a nickname. And he says, hope you had a nice New Year's Eve. As it's the 30th anniversary of A Little Late Enough, it would be interesting to hear your take on the album. Do you listen to it? Do you think it holds up? Where does it sit in David Lee Roth's solo career? Keep up the great work. Daz from Australia. Well, Daz, as you could probably have figured out by now, that we celebrated the last month doing a whole blowout on A Little Late Enough, and we got a lot of good feedback on that. So we're excited about that. Now, in terms of this, I've been thinking about this, David. I think A Little Late Enough is really Dave's second best album. I know you don't agree with that statement. Between the songwriting and the sound production, I'm starting to think it's my second favorite David Lee Roth album because I think it's overlooked and it's an uncovered gem. Where does it rank with you?
I think it's like number 4 with me.
Okay, because, so what's ahead of it?
Well, Eat 'Em and Smile,
yeah.
Skyscraper,
right?
DLR Band.
Oh, right. Now, you put Skyscraper above it, huh?
I do like Skyscraper. It still has good songs, and even though some of the keyboard sounds are dated and things like that, I still think there are some rock solid songs on there.
Yeah. Well, that's the truth. There are good songs. I just can't get over the lack of use of Billy Sheehan. That really kills me.
It kills me too.
Yeah.
And actually, I would dare say it kills me more than it kills you because I think he was somewhat underutilized on Eat 'Em and Smile.
Really?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, when you listen to the Talus albums, and then you listen to Eat 'Em and Smile, I mean, I know Dave is not going to let Billy go full Metal Jacket crazy on that album, but still, he was still somewhat underutilized. And then, forget it on Skyscraper, except for the last song on the album. Well, and a little bit on another song. He really wasn't allowed to be Billy on
right,
that album.
He wasn't. That's the truth.
My thing on an album is the songs have to be good. The players have to be good as well.
Right.
But for me, the songs are more important than the players being technically correct.
Right.
And I do think that Dave had decent songs on there. I'm not saying he had bad songs on A Little Late Enough. You know, like we talked about last time, a lot of them, they sounded borrowed.
Right.
And they were good, but to me, they weren't great. It's just my personal preference.
Okay, no problem. Letter number 8 comes from Eric Torbick from New Jersey. What's up, guys? Maybe it's me, but I don't